All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Greetings from our remote outpost in Washington, D.C. You'll pardon our sometimes in, sometimes out internet signal. It is just part of the game. But this is the seat of power, Washington, D.C. I am only a few miles from where all of your taxpayer money is wasted. Yes, right over the hill and down the way. It's great to have a packed show, much going on. Trump, Santos, the debt limit and the effects actually that the Santos indictment may have on the legislative bodies concerned with the debt limit and more. I mean, there's a very interesting aspect to the law and disorder part of the show today that has more than just law and disorder in it. It has, as I say, legislative implications. Kim is here. Albert is here. We are at full strength and joined by guest today, John Rothmann and director and comedian J. Elvis Weinstein. It's going to be quite the show. I know everybody loves their John Rothmann. You'll get Rothmann bottom of the hour. I think Kim did a special video blitz last night and spoke to Rothmann about the Trump verdict, the verdict in that civil trial. Isn't that what happened?
We had a little celebratory moment on YouTube. Yes, we did.
Yeah. I would caution.
What?
I would caution. I love the ding dong, the witch is dead that everybody's dying to do. But I think Rothmann may put it in some perspective for us. I think in the next couple of days, we'll continue to put it in perspective. I'll try to do it along with a Rothmann. And tomorrow, David Katz on the legal machinations. In fact, he was the one who forecasted there would be a guilty verdict in that Trump case. And then ultimately, I think Avila and Shore will put it in some perspective. Are circling the MAGA wagons. They are talking about a New York jury. You know those New York juries. They're full of the Trump haters. There's a lot of that.
It still felt good for a moment.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, because Trump has a get-out-of-jail-free card quality to his life, and that he's never been able to really have been brought to account in ways that are satisfying, then I understand it. But when you look back at Trump's history, which you can do in the David K. Johnston books, and you can also just do in recent memory, for example, the Trump University settlement, they had to settle that for a lot of money. That was an out-and-out fraud, the Trump University. They settled it for $25 million, okay? So Trump has been stung before by a legal system that ultimately does hold him to account for some of the things that he's done. But when you look at his history, I'd suggest a pay-to-play corrupt history and the connection to January 6th, well, you realize that there's so much more going on there. And so I suspect there is more on the part of those who want to see Trump pay a price, that this verdict sort of leaves a little short of the finish line. Yes, this guy, for all the reasons that we've detailed and more, likely perpetrated these actions, right? Sexual assault, just the way E. Jean Carroll described to her friend, the way so many other women have described, and with the way Trump himself described his, as they cackled on the Access Hollywood bus. But it's still, I think, with Trump, the leader in the Republican Party, with Trump, the likely name on the presidential ticket, may leave a lot of people short, as I say, of the finish line. But I mean to take nothing away from your victory dance, and I'll get into that in just a moment.
Oh, I danced.
Oh,
yeah.
I believe
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah, what's that? What?
I saw something last night on the internet, and I think John Rothman mentioned it as well. And I couldn't wait to tell you that Spencer Christian has won an award.
What?
Did you know he has his own podcast? And he has won for Best Podcast a regional Edward R. Murrow Award.
Wow, the After the Weather podcast with Spencer Christian. Look at that. And isn't that great? I was on that podcast, actually. I'm not sure, but I think that's likely the reason that he won that award.
You think
You
so?
know. Yeah, I suspect,
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
I don't mind the assist. I'm just saying congratulations is what I really mean to say to Spencer Christian. We should have him on. Maybe we could book him, Albert. Maybe tomorrow even. If not tomorrow, then sometime next week. But
I feel like we should enter this podcast, because it's also a podcast, for some awards as well. I mean, we need to start entering these contests because,
well, you know what? My hands are full. If you want to try to do it.
Mark Thompson, you're a winner too.
Thank you. I mean, the paperwork alone, I think, would keep me away from doing it. But I thank you. I know that these podcast award things are real, and a regional Edward R. Murrow Award, it sounds like a very big deal. So congratulations to Spencer Christian. Yet again, Spencer Christian, goes up, and he gets more awards than I could ever dream of having. But there's one thing that, that Spencer does not have that I do have, and that's the rod of equity and mercy. And there it is.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
And if you're watching on YouTube, you see that, and that was sent by whom? Albert, please. Do you know?
Karen Diaz. Karen D. Karen D.
Oh.
Karen, thank you so very much. For those who are just listening and not seeing it, it is holding the royal orb in the left hand and holding the rod of equity and mercy in the right hand, fully crowned, and that king is rightfully Mark Thompson. Thank you very much.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
I'm more deserving of the rod of equity and mercy probably than the guy who's holding it now. So, thank you for that. That's such a cool thing. I also got an email, and then I'll get into some law and disorder. And there's a lot going on, as I mentioned. I mean, it's not just Trump. I got an email from someone whose birthday it is today, and they sound like real supporters of the show. A longtime listener asking a favor, the email goes. This is from Victor. I'm due for some help and a favor that I know only you can help me with. Probably because I have the rod of equity and mercy. I'm going to get a lot of these requests now that I have it.
Are you sure
it is my love. It is my. What's that?
Are you sure you really want it then? I mean, it does come with an added responsibility. There's a lot more to do now.
I don't shy from responsibility, Kim, as you probably are aware by now. I'm okay.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
I'm mostly an equity and mercy person as I reflect on my life. Yeah. I'm about equity and mercy. E&M. It is my loving wife's 38th birthday. As the self-proclaimed Mark Thompson liaison in our home, should I ever miss an episode, she is there listening, donating, and live chat engaged.
Oh.
I know she is listening right now with a newly purchased present in hand, Good Day Sir mug from the Get Mark merch page. Personally, I love using my Why Don't You Just Text It mug. Oh, that's a really good old school mug, which holds coffee and ice cream just so perfectly, if I do say so myself. My wife and I have recently moved to Oregon from many, many years in the Bay Area, where she had first learned of your show and has since tuned in daily, listening on the radio station that shall not be mentioned. Since that collapse, both her and I love listening to you and the staff via you. Laughing, debating topics, and mimicking your drops have been part of our daily lives.
Good day, sir!
We have smashed the like button with our iron rods on our personal and work YouTube accounts, hoping it helps you in your algorithms. So this is a very nice guy.
With your iron rod.
If my background story hasn't already convinced you to help this family of listeners, you should know that I'm also donating a special something via Patreon or YouTube Super Chat on behalf of my wife's birthday.
Oh.
A type of bribery? Yes, but good-hearted, he says, because it ultimately supports the show that we and many others enjoy. Thank you for your continuous hard work. There's never been anything like it, he says in capital letters. I say all of this, it would mean the world to get a special shout-out, a why are you yelling, sayonara sucker, or good day, sir type of happy birthday for Marnay.
Why are you yelling?
Marnay, a big happy birthday. It sounds like you've chosen wisely.
Good day, sir!
Your husband seems like a very respectable young man, and I'm very happy for you both.
There's never been anything like this.
We thank you so much for being part of our family, our community of supporters and listeners. So, Marnay, happy birthday, kiddo.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. You share it with my mama tomorrow. It's her birthday. She'll be 93. Yeah, pretty cool.
That's probably an inappropriate moment to play this then.
Sayonara, sucker!
All right, we put it off long enough. Let's do some law and disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Trump's lead out and grows. A verdict holding Donald Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation, injecting maybe a new uncertainty into the 2024 presidential race. This will test whether voters and Republican allies will stick with him through another controversy. You know, E. Jean Carroll sued the former president, accused him of battery over an alleged rape in the teens, and then of defamation for calling her account a hoax. This is the greatest New York Post cover that we've seen in some time. Grab him by the wallet.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
Is the front page of the New York Post. Trump owes accuser $5 million after he's found liable for sex abuse and defamation. Asked on the verdict sheet if Carroll, 79, had proven by a preponderance of the evidence that, quote, Mr. Trump raped Ms. Carroll, the 9-person jury checked the box that said no. Asked if Carroll had proven by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Trump, quote, sexually abused Ms. Carroll, the jury checked the box that said yes. Both allegations were elements of Carroll's battery claim. The 6 men and 3 women also found Trump had defamed Carroll by calling her claims a hoax and a con job. The jury deliberated for only about 3 hours before returning the verdict. By the way, that's notable. We'll talk to David Katz about this, but that really means that by the time they got to the jury room, there had been enough presented in that case that they were comfortable with a decision in their mind already, I would suggest, right?
2.5 hours. I mean, that's, you know.
They awarded Carroll just over $2 million on the battery claim and just under $3 million on the defamation claims. This is a quote from Carroll. I filed this lawsuit against Donald Trump to clear my name and to get my life back. Today, the world finally knows the truth. She didn't speak to reporters apart from that. In a separate statement, her lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, I should say, said, no one is above the law, not even a former president of the United States. We are so thrilled that the jury agreed. Karen Cooper says Trump's lawyer said on CNN that they would appeal on the constitutionality, apparently his right to defame Carroll. She also said he was not guilty of rape. This is the lawyer who said that. He was convicted of sexual assault. Yeah, well, you expect that. Right. I see your point, Karen. He was convicted of sexual assault, but the lawyer is going to go on and go, see, he was not guilty of rape. I get it. That's sort of just, Trump defense 101.
And don't you think, too, that because the conviction happened in the civil court and not criminal, that they'll be able to say, oh, his job was just a civil case. That had nothing, I'm not a convicted anything. I'm not a convicted abuser. I don't have a record of that. That was just a civil. They'll explain it away.
Well, they'll try to diminish the verdict in any way they can, and that's Trump's way. And in fact, he went on his Truth Social network and he said in all caps, I have absolutely no idea who this woman is. This verdict is a disgrace, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time.
I think we're going to hear witch hunt an awful lot. And a lot of people in the chat are saying and commenting about how this woman, E. Jean Carroll, will likely never collect a cent of this money.
I think she'll have to, go through the appeal process, and, tracking Trump down and getting money out of him is never easy, even if you have a verdict. And I think that, if history is a guide, there might be some truth to that. But eventually, you will be able to collect. So, but they will appeal it. So, it was, and again, of all of the cases that faced Donald Trump, and I do want to talk to David Katz about this. It's odd that, again, this one, crossed the finish line first. Maybe because it's a civil case, but, the case was punctuated by a few key moments. Trump saying he, would never, she's not my type. And we told you this the other day, how he confused the pictures. And, by now you've seen that entire thing. But I think the questions as to politically for Trump, they're legit. What you see from the jury verdict, and by the way, the only reason that E. Jean Carroll could bring this case even is because the Sexual Assault Survivors, I think it's called the Adult Survivors Act, the New York Adult Survivors Act. Sexual assault survivors spent years fighting this statute of limitations on bringing a case like E. Jean Carroll's to be extended. And that's the only reason that you actually saw this case in court. She was able to bring this civil suit because of that. So you have sexual assault survivors who are going to begin to see their day in court in a way that they were not able to see it in the past. It took over 3 years for these survivors to get that law passed, and many years of activists lobbying. The New York Child Victims Act, which became law in 2019. These victims of sexual abuse on, with kids, all this stuff that's just, it's grotesque. All of these cases of sexual aggression and what I consider sexual violence, there was a statute of limitations on them before, and it was not fair. But now, with the extension of that, as I say, that permitted E. Jean Carroll to bring that civil lawsuit against Trump. The MAGA wagons have circled. Mm-hmm. No, it's not a criminal case, right? It's a civil case. That's exactly right, Joe. The MAGA wagons have, I'm looking at these, jury of his peers, only multimillionaires can sit in judgment or only philandering men. That would be a jury of his peers, Louise, yeah. That jury's a joke, say many in MAGA land. GOP senators defend Donald Trump after the sexual battery verdict. Even Republican senators who expressed unease about the verdict wouldn't rule out supporting Trump if he became their presidential nominee. It's the old adage. Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. And they do. Republican lawmakers defended former President Donald Trump after he was found liable for sexual assault and defamation. That jury's a joke. The whole case is a joke, said Senator Marco Rubio. Little Marco is coming to Trump's side. If someone accuses me of raping them and I didn't do it, and you're innocent, of course you're going to say something about it. It was a joke. Rubio added of the defamation findings. Trump, who declined the opportunity to defend himself in court, denied the allegation and called the verdict a disgrace. As I mentioned before, a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time. By the way, the greatest witch hunt of all time was the Salem witch hunt. So right away, you're in second position. It seems to me the greatest witch hunt of all time was the actual witch hunt, Salem witch hunt. Then if you want second position, there's competition. But
There's
I'm just
never
saying.
been anything like this.
Yeah. But Trump's top allies on Capitol Hill dismissed the verdict, suggesting the jury had found Trump liable, and it wasn't legitimate because it was drawn, that jury, out of a blue state pool. The same defense Republicans trotted out when Republican was criminally charged in Manhattan over hush money payments to an adult film star earlier this year. It makes me want to vote for him twice, said Senator Tommy Tuberville from Alabama.
Isn't that illegal?
Desperate times require desperate measures.
Lulu writes, "We witches take offense."
Yes. They're going to do anything they can to keep him from winning, said Tuberville. It ain't going to work. People are going to see through the lines. A New York jury, he had no chance. Senator Rick Scott from Florida said he didn't do it. Asked if he could support someone found liable for sexual battery, the senator said, I don't know the facts, and it's a New York jury. This New York jury thing, I told you, that's their thing, right? They get their talking points, and they hit them, and they keep hitting them. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to Donald Trump, the New York legal system is off the rails, he said. You never like to hear a former president has been found guilty in civil court of those types of actions, said Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota. But when asked if he could support someone found liable of battery, Rounds said, I would have a difficult time doing so.
So Joe says, how many people say they did it?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Everybody denies it. Yeah. Very, very good point. So that's one part of law and disorder. The Trump part, the MAGA wagon circled what they're saying. Essentially, they're attacking the jury. Federal prosecutors have filed criminal charges against New York Congressperson George Santos, the Republican lawmaker whose astonishing pattern of lies and fabrications stunned even hardened politicos, is expected to appear. I think he was, as they say, he surrendered to authorities. Isn't that what they say, Kim? And now we know a little something about what he was charged with. Isn't that right, Kim?
We do know a little something about what he was charged with. As a matter of fact, that is a hell of a lot of charges. What did they say? A 13-count indictment is what it is. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not sorry. 13 federal charges, including counts of wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and lying to the U.S. House. Well, lying? Are we surprised by that one?
Yeah.
In addition, among these, when you look deeper into it, I was reading a story on CNN that was talking about how prosecutors are saying that Santos used campaign funds for personal expenses, such as designer clothes. He also apparently, allegedly, was taking COVID unemployment benefits at the same time that he was calling on the president to end said benefits and voting against said benefits in the House. So,
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Well, there's a lot of that. You find it everywhere, right? When you oppose the infrastructure bill, and then as a GOP senator, you come out and go, I want to, celebrate the rebuilding of this bridge. We've waited for 30 years to rebuild this bridge. And it's like, dude, you voted against rebuilding the bridge. You voted against, getting the money to rebuild the bridge. So, success has many fathers. Failure dies an orphan. There you go. The success of the the success of the program that feathers your nest. In this case, George Santos, that comes out of the COVID relief package. you have no problem taking the money, but you got a problem when
right.
it comes to your public position on it.
Is that hypocrisy or irony?
Liar, your pants are on fire!
I'm going to say it is. It's definitely hypocrisy. It might be irony also. The rare
technical definition of both.
Yeah, the rare twin towers of irony and hypocrisy. Well done, Kim. Well done.
That's almost like the rod of equity and mercy.
Yes, really. That was very, very good. Yeah. Now, let me just quickly round out the political implications and the legislative implications I promised I would. The federal charges come, of course, after, this guy, Santos, has, been leading the parade of liars. He won that swing district in New York, sworn in January, but exposed as a serial liar. He fabricated his work history, his education. He fabricated all sorts of things related to finance. There were new lies being revealed, and I discussed at some length why we didn't know about these things in the mainstream media, because these congressional races involve such a small number of people, that is to say, districts that don't drive a lot of media, frankly. There's just not a lot of local media covering specific district races, and that's the reason, really, that we didn't hear about it in the mainstream media. But there was reporting on this before he was elected. It just didn't ever make it into the mainstream with enough momentum to affect the outcome. Anyway, Santos falsely claimed to be the Jewish descendant of refugees from the Holocaust. Then he had the great Seinfeldian explanation, saying, I didn't say I was Jewish, I said I was Jew-ish. I was ish. Yeah.
There's a dash there, okay? It makes a big difference.
Yeah. Now, in the short term, Santos's indictment won't change anything. He's been pulled off committees, but that is really what happens automatically. So giving up committee assignments after being criminally charged is routine. He already gave up his committee positions in January after he met with Kevin McCarthy. And McCarthy's saying, nothing's going to change. We'll just follow the same pattern we always have, is the quote. If a person is indicted, they're not on committees. They have the right to vote, but they have to go to trial. I'll remind you that Santos is a critical vote for Kevin McCarthy. He was a critical vote for Kevin McCarthy to get the speakership, and he was a critical vote for Kevin McCarthy to get the budget passed. So this is all about votes. That's why these guys, look the other way on so many things. So we'll talk more about this with John Rothmann, but that's the word on that. I know I've got Rothmann in a few minutes. I did want to mention the Clarence Thomas mega donor Harlan Crow situation, because he has essentially told Congress, hey, I ain't coming to give you a list of details about travel and real estate that I've showered the Thomases with. Forget it. So, I played you a little bit. I think Sheldon Whitehouse is magnificent on this stuff. When it comes to dark money and influence in the courts, go to Sheldon Whitehouse. And essentially, the Senate Judiciary Committee wanted Crow, and it was signed by all the Democrats on the committee, including Dianne Feinstein, who is supposedly coming back to work. They want information on gifts and payments given to Clarence Thomas. Well, Homeboy has basically flipped him the bird. Crow said, don't stay up waiting for that. The quote is, while the Crows have provided hospitality to the Thomases, that hospitality is rooted in a deep friendship, and the Crows derive great satisfaction from spending time with their friends. Personal hospitality is a cherished part of our communal fabric. It is a bought and paid for seat in the high court. And actually, Thomas flipped in that Chevron case, and that was no accident. That was a case that Crow had interest in. So, can I give you one last Bay Area story before we...
yes.
Yeah. More and more postal carriers are being robbed in the Bay Area.
What?
Yeah. U.S. postal inspectors are sharing information around robberies. One in Contra Costa County It's a disturbing trend seen not only across the country, but also across the Bay Area. Pictures were shared from officials of a suspect accused of robbing a mail carrier in Antioch on May 4th. He stole the postmaster's keys. Those can be used to open mailboxes, of course. And he attacked the mail carrier to get this stuff. Mail carrier wasn't injured. Now the U.S. Postal Inspector is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. The carrier is not going to fight for his keys, said the postal inspector. The carrier turned over the postal keys and immediately informed the post office and law enforcement, and that is what has brought on this search and this $50,000 reward. Another $50,000 reward was recently announced for San Francisco, where a mail carrier was robbed on Folsom Street. That happened in March. So the Bay Area adding these mail carrier robberies to the list of other stuff they're dealing with. And that, my friends, is a taste today of law and disorder.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
What's our situation, Commish? We have John Rothmann standing by. Is he going to come up after Kim's news?
Yeah, let me give him a call. He's usually here early. He's not here early today, so I'll call him.
Yeah, I'm concerned. All right.
We should just get to the news
because
now,
we changed his time to 11:05. Remember?
Oh no, we didn't. Oh, did we? I don't think so.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, we did.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that's why.
Are you sure? Hang on.
Yeah, we did it on.
All right,
I'll
well, then we're going to have a stack up over SFO on this, I think. But I'll deal with it I'll deal with it. Smash the like button like a boss. Thank you for being here.
With your iron rod.
One way or the other, you've got Rothmann. You also have the great filmmaker, comic J. Elvis Weinstein, both arriving today. So we'll get into all issues. What's that?
At the same time, they're both
at the same time,
today.
apparently. Good times.
Yes.
All right. Kim's news, and we continue. The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. The Homeland Security Chief says the next days and weeks will be difficult with the end of Title 42. A lot of people will be coming over the border. The COVID-era rule was used to expedite deportations during COVID. Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas warned immigrants to only use legal pathways to enter the United States. Congressman George Santos, as Mark was mentioning, he is now facing a slew of charges in New York. Prosecutors say the Long Island Republican allegedly received unemployment benefits during the pandemic despite being employed and running for Congress. They allege he also used campaign contributions to pay down personal debts and to buy designer clothing. The charges are federal in nature. Texas will not be raising the age needed to buy an assault weapon. We'd mentioned this story yesterday, that it was a possibility, but it looks like indeed that will not be happening in Texas. And it's a perfect opportunity for me to put up the Texas flavored gun here. Legislation to raise the age needed to buy an assault weapon that just passed out of committee yesterday did not get placed on the calendar for a vote. Big surprise. Parents of the Uvalde shooting victims have been lobbying for this bill, which would require buyers to be at least 21 years old. And again, that will not be moving forward at all. Sorry, Mr. Santos, that will not be moving forward. In other news, we have a story about New York City Mayor Eric Adams, who says a man put in a deadly chokehold on a subway train didn't deserve to die. Adams delivered a prepared statement more than a week after Jordan Neely's death, saying it should never have happened. The 30-year-old was experiencing a mental health crisis when he allegedly threatened subway passengers.
That's a big story in the New York area and beyond. But I mean, in New York, it's pretty much all that's being talked about, apart from the Trump thing.
Yeah. Have you heard of a human pangenome? I hadn't before, but
I don't think I have.
Scientists have made a rough draft of one. Yeah, it's a human pangenome. It's a collection of DNA that represents genetic information from 47 individuals. It's a step forward, they say, in allowing scientists to understand the code that makes us uniquely human and different from each other. So they've made a rough draft now of a human pangenome. We'll see what happens with that.
What?
Apparently, very sciencey and good news.
We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll stitch that together with some AI, and we got a superhuman. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, why not?
There's
Britney
never been
Spears'
anything like this.
tell-all memoir on hold. According to the U.S. Sun, the book has been put on hold due to fellow celebrities who are concerned about its content. The memoir is expected to cover most of the singer's childhood and some of her most personal and publicized moments. And Elon Musk is now inviting Don Lemon to launch a new show on Twitter. The former CNN anchor was fired from the network last month. Early Wednesday, Musk responded to a tweet from Lemon announcing his firing with the offer, claiming the audience is much bigger. Really? On Twitter? Okay. Tucker Carlson, who was also ousted from Fox News, announced Tuesday he is planning to launch a new version of his show on Twitter. Musk says he hasn't signed a deal with Carlson, and he is emphasizing the social media platform is nonpartisan. He says he's looking for creators from both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
So, okay.
He's looking for high-profile people to book into Twitter land. So maybe the Carlson-Lemon thing will bring boys to the yard. I don't know.
Maybe it will. And boys to the yard is a good thing, right? No matter what the boys are saying, I guess.
Oh, he's a bottom line. Exactly. He's a bottom line guy. He's just looking for clicks.
This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Did you know Tenuta is the only winery in the Livermore Valley with a dedicated tap room? That's right. They cater to beer lovers too. Tenuta doesn't make the beer. They support local breweries, and it's a very fun way to enjoy wine and beer. Tenuta's tap room has an original jukebox from 1953. It actually works. They love playing music on it. They also have more than 150 album covers on the walls and ceiling. So a fun place.
It's a party. It's a party vintner. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they say, their motto is if you give them 30 minutes, you'll be friends for life. So our thanks to Tenuta Vineyards.
And I think it's Rich's birthday Sunday, so happy birthday in advance, Rich at
awesome.
Tenuta Vineyard. Yeah.
I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Yes, back in Washington, D.C. This is a remote broadcast. That's why maybe the signal will fade in and out a little bit as we go. But glad you could be with us. We've got a great, great show, and we will continue it with a great, great guest. I must tell you that this guy that I'm going to introduce you to, because some of you may not have met him before, was my co-host, regular contributor. I don't know how you'd term it. On my podcast, ran with me for years. I want to say we're together for 5-6 years with our weekly podcast. Always up for anything, never said no. Like, some guests he was excited about, some he probably wasn't, but if he wasn't, he never, led on. He's a brilliant comic and a documentary filmmaker with 2 films out. We'll tell you about those as we have our conversation. And I just wanted you to meet him because I think he'll, if it's possible, be a regular visitor here too from time to time. Please, a warm welcome for J. Elvis Weinstein. Yes. Well, come on, J. Elvis.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hello there. I left out what I think may be the credit that everybody's going to go, oh, and that is you as the original voice of Servo on Mystery Science Theater.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's who I am.
But you created that character of Servo.
I did, indeed, when I was but a lad. I was 17 at the time.
17 years old. Yes. And where were you living then when Mystery Science Theater, you guys were all putting that together?
This was a product of Minneapolis, Minnesota.
That's what I thought. Yeah, the Midwest. And interesting, you were on stage, as I recall, like as a 15-year-old or something, right?
Yes, that's when I started doing stand-up.
Right, you were. And so you fall in with these other comedians and you put Mystery Science Theater together. With you, who else was it?
Well, Joel Hodgson was the actual creator of it, and he asked Trace Beaulieu and I to join him at this UHF station at the time in Minneapolis, and we basically improv'd a show. And then when Comedy Central came on the air, they needed programming, and we could provide this very cheap 2-hour show for them.
Yeah, so you'd show a movie, and there, I mean, again, there's this thin premise about you out in space and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But then the human and the robots watch the movie and essentially just smart-ass their way through it.
Yeah, and that was the development of the show, because Joel's initial concept was sort of it was sort of a play on the hosted local movie,
I see. Okay.
And he thought you would be a better host by actually going in and watching the movie with your guests rather than just coming in at the commercial breaks. And so as we did it each week, we started making more comments and more jokes, and and sort of seeing how many we could fit in without breaking it, and it turns out you can fit a lot of jokes.
it was what, boom, 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 boom. And since then, there have been all these knockoffs. I mean, it's become a format that I've seen used in comedy clubs and other venues.
Yeah, it is movie riffing is its own little subgenre of comedy now. And we absolutely do take some credit for that. Even though we had forebearers as well of people who were messing with movies, so we weren't like absolutely first to the scene.
Right, everybody's inspired by whatever. But so then you came out to Hollywood and you became a comedy writer, and you were a head writer. Were you head writer on one of the late shows? I think, right?
I was the head writer of Later with Greg Kinnear.
Right.
Which was Bob Costas had Later, and then Greg Kinnear took it over for a couple of years, and then.
But it was much more comedy based when you guys took it over. There were were sketches, and he had, my recollection is that, there was a commitment to comedy that there hadn't been on Costas, obviously.
No, it was much more of a standard late night talk show than Costas's thing, i.e. less entertaining and informing.
Right. What do you, now with the writer's strike, what do you make of what's going to happen? It seems like this is going to be a long haul, man. And I don't know at the end of it if anything good's going to be there for the writers.
Well, it can't be much worse. So, something good is going to be there at the end for the writers. And there's a sort of empirical fact that at some point you're going to need to make more stuff, and you're going to need us for that. So,
Yeah, right. And I'm not, and let me just say, I think you had to strike. I think the writers absolutely had to strike.
No, I agree. And I started, as we were talking about, 30 years ago now, doing this. And, it was an entirely different business when I came to Hollywood in the early 90s. It was just, everything was still based on the model of network television. And that model doesn't exist anymore the way it did, because that model also involved, selling to syndication packages and all these things that created a business model that made TV tenable, because shows back then were all deficit financed, because one show that sold into syndication could pay for all those failures.
Right.
But that firewall of money isn't there for shows anymore,
Sure. That's a great point. And again, just to reiterate that it allowed studios and production companies to lose money on first run because there's so much more money coming in potentially if the thing goes into any additional runs.
Right. But the studios are the ones who rushed into this new business model without a model, and
right.
And just decided we can deficit finance everything. Netflix, how many billions of dollars did Netflix put into programming with no real plan to get it back, other than hopefully people will keep subscribing.
Well, it's funny. Danny Zucker was here. Was it yesterday, I think, or the day before? And
it was the day before.
Have you ever seen our show before, J. Elvis?
I'm sad to say, or I'm ashamed to say I haven't, because you're my friend, but I have not. No.
Oh, I thought once you said I'm ashamed to say, I still wasn't sure which way you were going to go. But anyway, Danny was here, and he said exactly what you just said, which is, hey, Netflix, we didn't tell you to do this. We didn't tell you to dump all this money into development. I mean, it's a new model. We didn't tell you to pick up that model and run with it the way you have. Why are the writers being asked to own your mistake?
Right. And that's what it feels like,
Yeah. One of the things you've done, though, and I just want to mention this in our last couple of minutes because I loved your documentary films. And I think it's so difficult to do, to be a filmmaker, but to do documentaries particularly because you're bound to reality and particularly, both films, I think, have their own personality. I was going to say particularly the second one where you're kind of riding shotgun with all these comics and you're having to catch moments and then put them together after the fact. Your first movie, though, you have a story to tell. So could you just quickly, in summary, tell my audience who might not be familiar with the two films about your two movies? I think they might be of interest to the. They're not political. They're not. I mean, they're really a slice of show business, I think.
Yeah, they're two very different slices of show business, but yeah, one of the first that we'll talk about is called Michael Debar, Who Do You Want Me to Be? And it's about Michael Debar, who is this fascinating and incredibly entertaining figure of rock and roll and TV and movies. He's basically like this linchpin of 50 years of show business, where he was one of the pioneers of glam rock. He was in To Sir with Love with Sidney Poitier. He appeared at Live Aid as the lead singer of the Power Station. Meanwhile, he was like MacGyver's archenemy, and he was guest starring throughout the 70s and 80s on like every big TV show. So, but you've probably never heard of him. And so when you see him, you go, oh my God, I've seen him everywhere.
Yeah,
you go, oh, that guy from the Seinfeld episode, or that guy from the
WKRP or whatever.
For me, my first contact was WKRP in Cincinnati, where he was in this punk band called Scum of the Earth.
Yeah.
so
anyway, you're telling the story of his world, and it's
a full biopic, but yeah,
it was insane how key to Hollywood this guy Michael Debar was. He was hanging out with his home became the nucleus of Hollywood for a few years. I mean, major stars rolling through this guy's life, and it's wild to hear those stories told by all of these different people in your movie.
Yeah, I have great witnesses throughout the movie, and who all have a loving but clear-eyed view of Michael. So it's a very self-aware. I call him a benevolent narcissist.
Well, he himself, I think, wouldn't argue with that title.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. But he, the benevolence is that he absolutely rewards your attention.
Albert, can you'll Google it, Michael Debar, it's Desbarres. Maybe just put a banner up for the end of the conversation with Jay Elvis. So we'll mention it again. I'd love for people to see it. It's totally streamable and rentable or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's on various platforms. You can either watch it with commercials for free or rent it.
And then the other film you did was I Need You to Kill,
which I think you see over my shoulder here. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. I Need You to Kill.
Yes, and that was about the stand-up comedy scene in Asia, as seen through the eyes of 3 American comics, including Tom Segura, who's become very big since, and Pete Lee and Chad Daniels on this tour of Hong Kong and Singapore and Macau, that I got to tag along and give my version of what Comics on the Road is, and give my version of what this foreign comedy scene is.
Well, that's the thing, that they're over in Asia. I mean, honestly, I would have loved to be a fly on the wall and just seen those guys as they traveled across the country. But the fact they were traveling across that country, overseas in Asia, that made it really good.
Yeah, they were absolutely fish out of water in many ways.
Yeah. The Love J. Elvis. Wait a minute. Let me just put my credibility glasses on so I can read this. Joanne says, love J. Elvis. That's how I found you, Mark, on that podcast.
There you
Is
go.
that right?
We were sticky.
Wow. And Karen says, it says hello and offers us some financial support. You know, one of the things that happens on this platform, so again, that's called I Need You to Kill. But I'll mention it again.
That's available on Amazon Prime.
Okay, Amazon Prime. One of the things that we do here, J. Elvis, which is something that we didn't really do on the old podcast, and I certainly didn't do it on broadcast, is ask for money. It's the weirdest thing. And you need to do it, because if you don't, you're going to go away. You know what I mean? You must pay for all this stuff. Right. So,
for example, I have a podcast, Thought Spiral, with Andy Kindler.
You do, and you've just celebrated how many episodes? I thought you had some big milestone.
We crossed the 300 threshold a couple months ago.
If it weren't for you, that podcast would never get done. Am I right?
That is correct. Yes, it's fair to say. Yes,
you're the oomph behind that podcast. Kindler is the creative, I think, addition.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, whatever. Sure. I am the infrastructure. Yes.
Yeah, you're the infrastructure. Well, that's called Thought Spiral. So check it out. J. Elvis, I love that you visited. Please come visit again. So again, J. Elvis's 2 movies. There it is. Michael Day Barr. Who Do You Want Me to Be? God, Albert, very well done.
Yes.
And Ed Begley's in the movie. Also, Gabriel Byrne, I think, is in it.
Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols.
Steve
Don
Jones
Johnson.
from the Sex Pistols. Don Johnson. Thank you. I think it's a really good watch. It's not political. You'll just enjoy the ride. Michael Day Barr, Who Do You Want Me to Be? And the other movie is...
Are you really doing a show where you have to keep going? It's not political. Don't worry.
No. I mean, I do a mostly political show, and
I thought.
Yeah, but I like to tell people that because I think it's a good ride. You know what I mean? Without having to be. It's not like a Frontline episode that I'm plugging.
No. I have no agenda.
I Need You to exactly. I Need You to Kill is the other one, and there it is. It's on Amazon Prime. J. Elvis, I could talk to you all day. I hope you will come back and join us. Just you wisecracking about life in general is something that I miss. And
ask me about funnier things next time, and I will light up the place.
Well, J. Elvis does have a comedy album called Chunks.
Thank you for remembering that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I bought it twice. That's how much I loved you. But it's on iTunes, and it's really funny, and it's still funny. And a lot of that stuff is,
also not political. It's not political.
Also not political. Exactly.
Because I think we can all agree. We can just all agree it's a terrible time to be alive.
But the alternative is pretty grim too. So let's,
True that.
When you come back next time, tell everybody how you beat cancer, okay? Or you can just...
I just got a scan this week. Still beating it.
I love it, kid. I love it. J. Elvis Weinstein. Bye, J. Elvis. Bye. Love that guy.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have to put my credibility glasses on, Albert, to see what's happened. Go ahead, please. Tell me what's happening, Albert.
We do have Rothmann. I was able to call him. He'll be on with us at the top of the next hour, so that's just in a couple minutes.
Great, thank you. And I saw super stickers and super chats. Thank you for those, everyone.
Yeah, we actually have a couple minutes here that we can actually get to them. We got some big ones.
Let's do it. I'm wearing my credibility glasses so I can read what is on screen. From Jan, $9.99. Jan, mwah, from Washington, D.C., thank you for a super sticker and the support. We're crowdfunded, so any funding out of the crowd is always something appreciated. Thank you very much. Catherine Charo, still loving your show. $50. Are you kidding? Thank you. That is... I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to cry.
But that is cry territory. It really is. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Happy birthday to Marnay, Mr. 54. $38 for Marnay. Maybe Marnay is 38 years old. I don't know. I know they moved to Oregon.
Thank you.
If you missed it, that was from the first half hour. We read that listener email. So happy birthday, Marnay, and thank you, Mr. 54. Nice logo, by the way. Andreas! Really? You had a fundraiser without me? It couldn't have been much of a fundraiser, right? Andreas leaves us a 50. He is our great supporter. You must be talking about the meet and greet we did, which was fun. Not saying it wouldn't have been more fun if you were there, but it was fun. And it was our first. So we learned from it, and we so appreciated everybody being part of it. And it was awkward not to have you being part of our first fundraiser. So, Andreas, stay tuned. Another one is coming. And we'd absolutely want you to be part of it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and here's a second 50 from
wow,
Andreas.
Albert, I'm not gonna.
And he's not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. You will cry. Oh, you will.
And here's a third one. Mark.
Wow,
So
let's keep Mark from getting a second job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andreas. I bestow a special blessing with the rod of equity and mercy.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Please receive it in peace. So cool. Thank you, Andreas. Very, very cool, man.
Very generous, yeah.
Jim Slayton, longtime listener and supporter. Thanks for $10 today and a super sticker. Everybody, it's a blizzard of support, and we appreciate it. Sadly, we're crowdfunded. I say sadly because, believe me, I don't like to remind you of it all the time, but it really is so very important. Sandy, it's hard to turn Andreas Mousouris down. Exactly. He is. He's put the challenge down. Sandy for 25. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. And Karen, I'm with you, Andres. Wow, another 50 from Karen.
Wow.
This is
Thank you
quite
so much.
Thank you so much, all of you. Karen, Andreas.
Thank you.
Vicky and Sausalito joining the Andreas Club. Wow, Andreas brings them all in. Thank you for a quick 20, Vicky and Sausalito. Wow. Really, really cool. Thank you very, very.
Thank you.
Thank you. Like Chappelle said, thank you.
Very kind.
Yeah, really, really great. Well, we've had a great first hour. Did a lot of politics. We did Santos. We did Trump. We touched on the postal workers being overwhelmed by crime in the Bay Area. Then we had a visit with J. Elvis Weinstein, the filmmaker, the comic. Well, coming up, the political implications of the case against Trump, the case against Santos, and the future. John Rothmann joins us next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now on the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Of course, as Mark mentioned earlier, there are now charges pending against George Santos. 7 counts of wire fraud, part of the 13-count indictment facing New York Congressman George Santos. Other charges include money laundering, theft of public funds, and false statements. Santos was taken into custody this morning. E. Jean Carroll hopes her civil suit win against former President Trump will set a precedent, she says, for all victims of sexual abuse. The jury found Trump sexually abused and defamed E. Jean Carroll in a case brought by the columnist. Trump scheduled to appear on a CNN town hall tonight. Let's see if he talks about that. The White House and the GOP at odds over how to secure the border with the end of Title 42 funding. That comes this week. Sorry, get the wrong picture there. So yes, that comes this week. The House Republicans look to pass a bill that would finish the border wall, advance border security technology, and support border authorities. The White House argues that GOP bill will just make the whole thing worse.
Well, the wall is an absolute boondoggle. It was a dish to all the Trump political donors. You had people working on building the wall with their firms that had nothing to do with wall building. I mean, it was an absolute true dish to donors. And it continues to be an abomination. It's an environmental grotesque crime that's going on down there, and it's not effective. So when you put all those things together, it's really just a GOP talking point. And so they added it to their budget because they want to be perceived as tough on the border. And they throw in that border wall thing because it's a rallying cry to various GOP voters, but it's an utter embarrassment.
I thought we were done with that. When Trump left office, I thought, okay, now we can move on from the wall, but apparently the wall is back.
Because it's an effective talking point. Exactly.
A hospital report shows the man who plowed into a crowd of illegal immigrants had cocaine, marijuana, and Xanax in his system. It's a trifecta. George Alvarez is charged with manslaughter for the crash that killed 8 people. The 34-year-old remains jailed on a $3.6 million bond. In the Bay Area, Santa Clara University was unveiling a vending machine that contains free Narcan. It's a super drug that can reverse the effects of an opioid overdose, specifically fentanyl. Assistant Professor Jamie Chang says the idea is for students to carry Narcan, also known as naloxone, with them and administer it if the need arises. Chang guided her public health students in getting the vending machine on campus, and now they're training others on how to use it to save a life. Other colleges and universities across the country are taking this approach as well. Santa Clara County is also considering installing such a vending machine on high school campuses as well. Anti-Semitic acts of violence are increasing dramatically in California. According to a new report from the Anti-Defamation League, assaults, harassment, and vandalism targeting Jews in the state of California increased 41% last year. The report, entitled Hate in the Golden State, found there were 518 anti-Semitic acts committed in California last year, the number second only to New York, where 580 of those acts were reported. In sports, 2 teams look to advance to the conference finals tonight, while 2 teams try to stay alive in the NBA playoffs. The Miami Heat try to pull their second straight upset and knock out the New York Knicks in Game 5 at Madison Square Garden. The defending champion Golden State Warriors host the LA Lakers tonight in a must-win game.
It was pretty grim. Pretty grim in wouldn't you say, Commissioner? I saw a Mercury News piece today. They're already looking toward next year.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of imploding right now, but
that was sort of depressing, but yeah. I'm going to say this. This has nothing to do with the Dubs specifically, but just watching the NBA playoffs, which of course go on too long, and it's essentially a second. We've discussed it before. It's really a second season, but wow, the athleticism, it's insane. It's really incredible. Reminds me of John Rothmann, actually. It's that powerful. The kind of the physical specimens and what they're able to do on the floor. So yeah, quite amazing.
Paramount is announcing layoffs across several companies that are merging together. The most noteworthy casualty, MTV News, which is shutting down after nearly 40 years. Paramount President Chris McCarthy telling employees in a statement, from broader economic headwinds are the cause for the layoffs. And lastly, a hound dog named Buddy Holly is this year's Best of Show winner at Westminster. He is a French breed with a fancy, tough-to-pronounce name. It is Petit Basset Griffon Vendine.
Wow, yes. Very impressive.
PBGV for short. The adorable long-haired 6-year-old who lives here in California is the first of his breed to snag the purple ribbon at the annual Westminster Kennel Club show. The 147th competition was held in New York, as always, but for the first time at the Billie Jean King National Tennis Center in Queens. So that happened. Yeah. And again,
I saw some highlights. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
That's as much a participation as I had.
I would think that you're more of a fan of the rescue dogs than the fancy breeds.
I do not really approve of Westminster, but I did. I was looking for one thing in particular that I was hip to by someone. That's why I was looking for that thing. But no, not a fan. And even I'll tell you just last thing, and then I want to get to Rothmann. But best in breed, or when they hold up certain aspects of breeding to levels that are supposed to be associated with award winners, those are concocted by people. Those various attributes that are assigned to various breeds. So they're not even reflective of nature. So I've got a part of a much, much, much longer conversation that we will not have. But
no, okay, well then we won't go into it. This report, sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore, I wanted to let you know that this is what the jukebox looks like.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's really cool, and they have lots and lots of albums. And I got a text message from Rich at Tenuta Vineyards who wanted me to mention and let everyone know that they are open this Mother's Day weekend. Please contact Rich at Tenuta Vineyards. I have the phone number. It is right here. You can see it on the screen. Have them contact me, he says, to set up a day and time for tasting. And he says we have surprises for Mom this weekend. So, yeah, call Rich at 925-699-4576. And as always, the offer still stands at Tenuta Vineyards. You contact them, mention Smash It With Your Iron Rod, and they'll take 10% off at Tenuta Winery.
What a fun place to spend Mother's Day. Very cool.
I think so. Absolutely.
Right there in the Livermore Valley. All right.
Yeah. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Without delay, welcome back. Hour 2, Mark Thompson Show. I am Mark. We are on location, Washington, D.C. I like to come visit the military-industrial complex from time to time, so I come through Washington. It's sort of fun. There is a house around me that I grew up in. It's filled with shame and regret, everyone.
And stuff, apparently. Lots of stuff.
And lots of stuff. Now he's waited patiently. We did 2 weeks of the show without him. It was pretty tough. But now he is back. The sexy beast, the great mind that is John Rothmann, everybody. Welcome him back. You were south of the border. Is that what you said? You're at a wedding in Mexico?
I was in Mexico City for a wedding. It was absolutely spectacular and had a lovely time, and I'm glad to be home.
Mexico City is supposed to be, and I've never been, obviously, that's why I say it's supposed to be, just a remarkable world-class city, and restaurants that are extraordinary, culture that's extraordinary. Did you find that all?
Yes, absolutely. I will tell you that the poverty that exists side by side with the opulence is very disturbing.
How long before we have that completely done in this country, John? I feel like we're headed that way.
If you believe that, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you. It's made out of gold. I can see it from my bedroom window.
We have, though, you will concede, the richest riches alongside what is now a growing, I'm going to call it underclass, with the elimination in the middle of that middle class life that could put a roof over your head comfortably and where you could put your kids through, various colleges, or, you know what I'm saying, John? You don't buy that that this country is really sliding a little bit that way?
I think there's no question that the cost of housing is impossible. Take a look at the prices of houses in San Francisco. That's all you have to do to understand the problem, or go to the suburbs, or go to places where you thought housing was cheaper and it really isn't. And it's a real conundrum because of the American system. So this is one of the things that we will have to witness and watch, and which I think will be an issue in the next presidential campaign as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I think as people struggle to make ends meet, they feel as though their piece of the pie is getting slimmer and slimmer.
The American dream was to be able to buy a home. And I can tell you, I have many friends and my children's friends Even renting an apartment is a complex thing. The average apartment in San Francisco now is going for about $4,000 a month. So it's a real issue for people. And the housing prices are phenomenally high, but that's a whole other issue to debate.
Well, I mean, I think that also that post-war world where you had a thriving middle class and you had a thriving industrial class with, as you say, the American dream essentially accessible to all. Those days are gone. You've had union busting going on, as you know, in those many decades, and I think you see it now. I thought labor was having a moment in this country over the last few years, but now you see some major labor hurdles to clear. The Oakland teachers are on strike. The writers in Hollywood are on strike. You've seen union busting across the Starbucks chain, even in Amazon. So I'd love to have this conversation with you maybe for next time, because I know we've got Santos and Trump to talk about. But I think there's a lot here. This is a real moment in American economic history going on. I want to ask you about this Trump case. I know there's a ding dong, the witch is dead kind of quality to the celebration, But I was saying before that if you listen to the GOP, and I was reading some quotes, everyone from Marco Rubio to Ted Cruz, they all dismiss it. It's a New York jury. It's a civil case, whatever. They essentially push it to the back burner as they know that Trump right now is leading in polls and he's their guy. Can you unpack it for us?
Last night, I was with Kim McAllister for a very brief broadcast on this whole question. And I want to be crystal clear. I have predicted, and those of you who listen to me on KGO and then again here on the Mark Thompson podcast know that I've been very clear that ultimately the wheels of justice would grind Donald Trump. And that's exactly what's happening. I believe it is not a celebration for me of Donald Trump's guilt. Rather, it is a vindication of the American justice system. No one is above the law. Donald Trump faces not only what happened yesterday with E. Jean Carroll, but he faces the charges from New York. He will face charges on the insurrection. He will face charges on Georgia. And people ask, well, will he ever pay any money? And the answer is that's not the point. If he never pays a nickel, history will judge him harshly. I am very sad to report that two leading Republicans, Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio, as you indicated earlier, have dismissed this situation, saying, oh, the jury was packed and you can't get a fair trial in New York. How tragic, because both of those individuals are lawyers and they know better. And the truth of the matter is Donald Trump was nailed now for something that he should have been nailed for years ago. Tonight at 5 o'clock West Coast time, I will, like I hope all Americans, will be watching CNN for the town hall with Donald Trump. It should be high drama, and I'm sure that it'll be put right to him, and we'll see how he responds.
Well, it's only high drama if the journalist who's conducting the town hall holds his feet to the fire, and Donald Trump serves up BS like a short order chef, and you have to check him in real time, John. It's very, very hard to do.
Caitlin Collins, I have a high regard for her. I'm anxious to see how she performs. I watched Dana Bash going up against one of Trump's attorneys yesterday and really being shut down. But I hope that Caitlin Collins is tougher, and I hope that the voters of New Hampshire, and I've spent a lot of time in New Hampshire, I hope the voters of New Hampshire who are part of that town hall are equally insistent. What is tragic in my mind is the Republican Party's total lack of response, except for Asa Hutchinson, who made a very strong comment about Trump. But is he going to...
Well, Asa Hutchinson made a strong comment because Asa Hutchinson is running for president.
That's right. But let me remind you, the other candidates for the Republican nomination have been very mild. They were restrained. Asa Hutchinson was not. Now, maybe he's trying to stake out a particular group. Let me also indicate to you, I don't know if you saw Liz Cheney's commercial, which is now being run, which blasts Trump, which was made in advance of this decision. Thank God there is some courage in the Republican Party to stand up to the cult of Donald Trump.
I mean, it's so sad that we have to run to Liz Cheney for this, but you're right. I mean, the others who you mentioned, Rubio and Graham, they have let down the process. I mean, there is that, I was saying, the adage, Democrats fall in line, Republicans fall, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. There is a quality with Graham and Rubio and the rest, and the others who are all on record as saying, hey, it's a New York jury, of falling in line, that they support their guy. Democrats don't have that kind of loyalty. Yeah.
They should all know better, and the American people should most assuredly understand how important it is when the criminal justice system works, and it clearly does. Donald Trump says he's going to appeal. Good luck.
You said something, and I don't mean to, this is something that I think is a frustration with a lot of our listeners and viewers, and I have it immensely, and that is the slowness with which these wheels of justice, as you describe, the gears of justice that grind. This is an extraordinarily, excruciatingly slow process to get him on the things that really matter, essentially trying to overturn an election.
They'll get him. They'll get him. And I want to remind you, in Watergate, which took place in June of 1972, it took until August of 1974 for a result. It is important that we preserve the process of judicial fairness in this country. And I have to tell you, I know it takes a while. Justice is not necessarily quick. It's not Perry Mason style within a 60-minute period. But you can see the wheels turning, and you can see Donald Trump and the situation. I have to tell you, I agree with some Republican observers who said he may win the nomination, but he hasn't a chance of a snowball in hell of winning the election. And I believe that to be true. Why? Because of swing voters in this country. But the tragedy here is the Republican Party. And the Republican Party ought to have the wherewithal. And I'm not a Trump supporter, as you all know. The Republican Party should have the wherewithal to stand up and say, we embrace much of what Donald Trump did as president, but we reject him as a personality. That, to me, would be the ultimate vindication of this situation.
What kinds of things might they say that they had endorsed during his administration?
You name whatever Donald Trump wants to talk about: tax cuts, the Middle East, the border. You can name it. I don't agree with him on any of those things.
Right.
But it's a platform which the Republican Party embraced and continues to embrace. And the question now for the Republican Party is, will they continue to embrace this man who has violated every norm in American politics? You know what's stunning to me, Mark, as a political historian? There is not another politician in the United States who could have survived with the popularity, these slings and arrows that have come Donald Trump's way, all of his own being, all of his own cause. And so this is going to be a real challenge. When Donald Trump is gone from the scene, how will the Republican Party rebuild itself? And I believe in a two-party system in this country. I believe it's very important. There is no third party that is going to take the place of the Republican Party, and therefore the Republican Party has an obligation to get its house in order.
So well said, although I would say that there already is, John, the wing of the party that has seized control independent of Trump. I mean, it's Trumpian, some of the things that they say and some of the postures that they take, and this whole idea of doubling down on your indecency, or what you might consider indecent. That's become a thing, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Josh Hawley. These are all, and it was already, you already had the Gomerts of the world, and, they're all out there, it's sort of moving the meter, not as hot. These are the new hot personalities, the Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, et cetera. So I feel as though after Trump, it'll be that, I think. And they, to the extent that they've seized the agenda, they've been successful. I mean, they seized the agenda from Kevin McCarthy, don't you think, John? When it comes to this budget, the stipulations that are in this, quote, budget that they passed, they represent a lot of those people who I just mentioned and their positions.
Unfortunately, you're right. But let me say, Kevin McCarthy, and I listened very carefully to his comments after his meeting with the president, Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans are doing great damage to the United States of America. And hopefully, all you can do is hope. Hopefully, the American people and the Republican Party will stand up and say enough is enough. I think that must happen. I don't say it will happen, but it must happen. And look, you mentioned George Santos and his criminal indictments, which have now come down. There is justice. It just takes time. And people do wake up. And when you have the Republicans on Long Island telling him, be gone, enough of you, then you can only hope that in the end, I know what's going to happen. Santos will lose his seat in Congress one way or the other, and the Republican Party will try to reclaim. But the point really, Mark, is I don't wish ill on the Republican Party. I want them to be a vibrant political party. I want them to offer a choice for the American people. And given the platform they have adopted, and remember, they had no platform in 2020. Their platform was whatever Donald Trump wants. The minute a political party makes a statement like that as a formal statement of their position, one man, that is something that is unacceptable in the American political system, in my judgment.
Well, John Rothman is right. I mean, it's a cult on the GOP side. It's a cult of Trump, and that's why the Trump cultists reject the jury verdict and will always back Trump no matter what. He literally could do, I think, anything. I mean, they've looked the other way on sexual assault. They've looked the way on any number of things, on fraud of all sorts. I mean, this is a guy who essentially spends his life defrauding in one way or another. But on the Santos thing, because you mention it, Santos is a critical vote for passing that budget. Santos is a critical vote to McCarthy in getting him the speakership. You'll notice McCarthy is kind of playing it down the middle, you know. Hey, well, we took him off the committees. Of course, he was already off the committees. He had removed himself from the committees because of a conversation he'd had with McCarthy back in January. You know what I mean, John? It's an interesting fact about this Santos guy. McCarthy needs that vote, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's shameful. Once upon a time, the Republican Party had leaders in the House of Representatives like Joe Martin and Charlie Halleck and Jerry Ford and Bob Michael, who were exemplary leaders. They were people who really worked the system. Some of them I knew quite well. That is not the Republican Party. May I make another comment? Today, Congressman Comer, who is the leading the investigation against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, was supposed to drop all his bombshells. So far, it's the same old stuff. And it upsets me. You know what's amazing to me? While we were away, Tucker Carlson lost his job. Thank God. Although he's trying to come back now. But let me be clear about this. I watch Fox because, you know, I have low blood pressure and I've got to keep myself going. I listen carefully to how Fox reflects on these current crises, and it is pathetic. It's not news. I won't call it Fox News. That's an oxymoron. But it is something we have to understand, that half of America watches Fox. So it's a curious disconnect from the truth.
Well, because you've mentioned news and because you've mentioned Fox, I want to ask you a question that no one else is bringing up. That's what I do here, John. I talk about stuff that nobody else is talking about. I'll get to Santos and Trump and all that other stuff. Everybody's talking about it. But I also talk about stuff that nobody's talking about. And so, because you mentioned news, I wanted to touch on the fact that there is a White House policy that's coming down. And there was a flavor of this with the Trump administration. And now you're seeing it in the Biden administration. New White House rules concerning reporters and journalists in the White House press room. You know what I'm talking about. They proposed new rules to determine who qualifies for access to the press room and who will get those briefings on a regular basis. This is their attempt to establish a code of conduct and to avoid the legal jeopardy that the Trump administration found themselves in. You'll remember when they got rid of Costa and Brian Carroll. That was in 2018. They got rid of these guys, and that was contested in court because there was no due process. You'll recall all of that. So now the White House is saying, hey, there are going to be new codes of conduct for all of you in the press room if you want to sit in on these briefings. Your thoughts?
Shameful. Shameful. I believe that when you are a public official, you have to enter the arena to take any question. And if someone, and we have people from Fox who go to these press conferences and try to be disruptive, then the press secretary shouldn't be polite. I know why you're here, the press secretary should say, and you may ask your question, I will answer it, and then we're going to move on. I think you have to confront this kind of disruption, whether it comes from a Democrat or a Republican, no matter who is in the White House. I am reminded of press conferences. You may remember when Richard Nixon was confronted by members of the press, including Dan Rather and others, and really lambasted, and he gave it right back to them. But you know something? That is the give and take you want. It's interesting to me, Mark, the one thing that Fox does, they broadcast the White House press briefings. And that to me is intriguing. Although, may I tell you, I believe that a president of the United States should have the courage to meet the press. Franklin Roosevelt had 999 press conferences or some such number, almost 1,000 during his presidency. He summoned the reporters into the Oval Office, and you know what he did if somebody asked an out-of-line question? He said, put on the dunce cap and go to the corner. There was a sense of humor, there was a sense of correctness, and that is what we are missing. May I also make the comment about Joe Biden, because he is more and more in the news in terms of his ability to function. I have no doubt about his ability to function. He's doing it, but maybe with the help of staff, as Dianne Feinstein does, with the help of staff. But the simple fact is the American people are going to have to make a judgment in November of 2024. And you and I will be watching and observing and talking about it then, I'm sure. And that is, do we want a president who is 80 years old and who clearly does not have the vigor that Joe Biden had when I knew him in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s? And it's a serious question. It doesn't mean he's not a good president. It doesn't mean his policies have not been effective. The other thing I've noticed, and it is very...
Well, isn't that what it's about, though, John? I didn't mean to interrupt, but isn't that what it's about when you say, do we want... I'm hiring a babysitter for my kids who has to run around and, get them off the swing set. I'm hiring a president whose policies are important. So even if the guy's a step or even two slower, in a sense, it's about policy, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. But we also look to a president, as Theodore Roosevelt described it, as a bully pulpit. That is to say, being able to articulate and demonstrate the effectiveness of leadership. And I think that is something that the Democrats have to take into account as well. So do the Republicans, by the way. I am deeply concerned when I see someone like Governor DeSantis emerging as the evident successor to Donald Trump. DeSantis is just as bad, if not worse. Just take a look at his policies in Florida. So there are real issues in this country that have to be confronted. And one of the things that I hope will happen as this presidential race heats up is those issues will be confronted, and that you and I and others will take them on directly and comment on them and talk about them. We have
sadly, for the most part in these presidential elections, what masquerades as issues that we talk about is embarrassing. I mean, it's the emails from Hillary. It's
so we have to try to rein them in. We have to try in what we do in our own way. I'm smart enough to know that you can't solve all the problems, but what you can do is act responsibly yourself in whatever situation you may find yourself. And that's what I've tried to do on the radio, and that's what you tried to do on the radio, and that's what we're going to continue to do, I'm sure.
All right, so next week we'll talk the town hall thing, which you have great hopes for, and I have lesser hopes. You're an optimist, and I'm a realist.
Not that I have hope. I am going to watch it and hope that it works, but I can assure you from the point of view of entertainment, and for Caitlin Collins, who is the MC, this is going to be a critical point in her career.
Oh, it is. But I think that I'm sorry. The U.S. I mean, yeah, it's like watching a great high school team play the Warriors. It's I'm sorry, Donald Trump. When it comes to BS and owning a conversation, there is no better. I mean, he serves up fraudulent facts so quickly that it's almost impossible in real time to check him. But as you say, it will be an event, so I will watch with you. But we will discuss, more to the point, next week. I adore you.
Who knows what else will happen by next week?
Yes, it's true. I wish I had my Kamala Harris finger puppet with me. I do not, but I'm sure wherever she is, she wishes you well. Thank you, John Rothman.
Next week.
Bye-bye. Oh, I thought you were going to sting me. You're not going to do that.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Guy's gone 2 days, and you have to remind him what the format is. Unbelievable. Just
Whoever is producing this thing
has no idea what he's doing. He might have dozed off
beauty
during.
of Mark not having a setup is that drop isn't here. So.
I thought Albert might have dozed off during the Rothman conversation. I didn't know what happened there. Rothman's great. I love kicking it around with him. He's absolutely terrific. And you can see that we disagree on certain things. I try to push him a little bit. I think it's always a good round with John Rothman. So I appreciate so much him being here. Smash the like button. Thumbs up for Rothman and more.
With your iron rod.
We are on. We're at a satellite location in DC. That's why I have this background behind me, and that's why the signal may come in and out with some audio hits here and there, maybe even some video hits, but we appreciate it. Here just this week, then back in the studio next week. Kim, anything
You are located in the basement of the Library of Congress, correct?
It does have that look and feel. It really, really does. Lots and lots of books. There was something that happened last night. My dad says to my sister, and I'm so grateful that my dad is able to say anything to, because he was there in the hospital for so long. I'm so worried about him. And my dad says to my sister, can you go up and get me the compilation of, and it was some, collection of poems and short stories. It was, these are from these sort of well-known authors and poets.
Right.
And it was and my sister said, well, is it a big book? And you describe the book and where it is? Because the home is just completely, it's like one big library.
I'm looking behind you thinking I'm never going to find it.
This is right. Exactly.
Are they alphabetized? What's going on back there?
I don't know. I mean, maybe I found out last night, there are parts of this whole scene that are well organized, and there are parts of it that are not as well organized. Sure. So my sister goes up because my sister and my dad do have this weird kind of Jedi mind thing where she understands sort of maybe when it comes to the books. Right. So she goes up to find this book, and she comes back down and says, light, I can't see it. Can you describe what the book is? Because I can't really read the titles. And he said, well, it's a green book. It's a big, thick green book. She goes back upstairs and she says, I still can't see, but I brought you this book. Okay. And he says, my God, book I was looking for.
Wait, say that again. My God, what?
My God, this is the book I was looking for.
Okay, that's great.
So amazing. My sister is the bloodhound of book finding.
That's impressive, given how many books I see back there. That she got the right one.
It was amazing. It really was like a parlor trick that she could pull that book out of the thousands of books up there. But anyway, that's where we are in Washington, D.C. all this week. Then back to the West Coast after this. Smash the like button. Thank you. We've seen some contributions. We try to post them in real time, and then we'll acknowledge them at the end of the show. We are crowdfunded. Thank you for all of you. Some of you who have stepped up your Patreon participation. I really appreciate that. And I always try to write back to those who have stepped up Patreon or on PayPal. And of course, we update our scroll that runs at the end of our show. It runs every single day to thank all of our PayPal and Patreon contributors. It means so very much. The thing about Patreon and PayPal, and then I'll break for Kim's news, is it lets us plan. When I see we have this much, then I know we can live for this much longer. It's a weird thing that we're having to do. There's a business. I mean, it's a fairly, small, barely making it kind of business that's associated with this. But that's what you all in Patreon and PayPal help us do. So themarkthompsonshow.com is where you click through to Patreon and PayPal. And so appreciate that. And all the super stickers and super chats every day here on YouTube really, really help. So thank you. All right, Kim's News. And then I have for you a bizarre story out of San Francisco. Yeah, even bizarre by San Francisco standards. I'll share that with you next. Oh, and is that Deidre?
Yeah.
Let me put my credibility glasses
Says,
on.
my website has crashed, but Lozica loves the MTS.
Deirdre from Lozica Concrete, again, for all my concrete needs. Deirdre Lozica at Lozica Concrete, 25. Thank you for that. My website has crashed. Wow. Last minute rush. Love you all from Andreas. A quick 20. What up, Andreas? Deirdre and Andreas really bringing it today.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a bunch of other. Wes also with a quick 5.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Beth Farmer, thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you so much.
I wish all of you could receive the rod of equity.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Everyone who's made a contribution, including you, John Woodard, receive the rod.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Yes. All of you who contributed in the first hour, let you receive the rod.
Receive the rod of equity and mercy.
Yes. Kim's News, then more. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. Let us begin with the Secretary of Homeland Security saying the border will be closed after Title 42 expires. Alejandro Mayorkas, however, did not elaborate on what exactly that means and said the next days and weeks will be difficult. A surge of migrants are expected to enter the United States starting Friday, the day after Title 42 ends. The Prime Minister of India will be at the White House June 22nd. President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden will host Narendra Modi for an official state visit and a state dinner. The White House says that June 22nd visit will affirm the deep, close partnership between the two countries. The artificial intelligence platform ChatGPT will be the subject of a congressional hearing next week.
I'll bet.
The Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Privacy, Technology, and the Law will question the OpenAI CEO about the benefits and the risks of AI. The hearing is titled Oversight of AI, the Rules for Artificial Intelligence. Texas.
I mean, again, you have oversight from people who have no idea what they're talking about when it comes to this technology. So this will be interesting to see when it comes to Congress overseeing technology.
It's always interesting to me how you have these technology committees and they don't get it. Like you hear, you know, them talking with CEOs or asking the most inane questions of tech CEOs, and it just shows that they don't understand what the technology
Mr. Zuckerberg, tell me, when I put my photos of my grandchildren on your Facebook, how come I don't see them every time I log into it's just so, you know.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Zuckerman, I've got some questions for you about the it's just incredible.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Watching the mess that was the hearing around Facebook and even around Google, you know, when the Google CEO went, it's just, you just have, and to be fair to them, there's a lot to know. I mean, it's not, so you have people who are already perhaps I'm sure I would struggle to ask the appropriate questions. So
well, you've done enough interviews and read enough that I think you probably understand it more than they will. It just seems
well.
Like
the one thing I would say, it really reflects. They're so agenda driven, typically, that they don't do the homework, the general homework necessary to have an informed hearing about the things regarding oversight of technology. So, I mean, the one thing I would do is I'd go to school. I'd do the homework, but I don't see them doing it. But nonetheless, that'll be interesting to see next week.
Speaking of Mark Zuckerberg, you know, he is a new jiu-jitsu guy.
Oh, yeah.
And
I heard about this.
He competed over the weekend in
Is he
his
any good?
first jiu-jitsu competition.
I would think he'd have the very best instructors.
Well, he does. And let me tell you that Mark Zuckerberg came away from his big thing, his big jiu-jitsu competition, with a gold and a silver.
Look at you, the Zuck
Hey,
in the winner's circle.
There he is.
I heard that there was some controversy behind that, though.
Always a problem with you, Commissioner. What did you hear?
Yeah.
I think I did see, maybe I haven't confirmed, I did see some people on Twitter saying that he actually restarted the competition and then he won the second time. I'll have to look into it.
Oh, yeah, please. The commissioner's office is on it, Kim.
You just play
By
until
looking
you
into
win?
it, I'm
Is
going
that
to
what
put on my tinfoil cap and go do a Google search.
Yes, please do. Wow.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has vowed to push for a pardon for a man who received a 25-year sentence in the death of a Black Lives Matter protester. Daniel Perry's attorneys claim he acted in self-defense. Perry was a rideshare driver at the time and says he unknowingly turned into this protest as it made its way through downtown Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
The California Department of Justice is announcing a civil rights investigation now into the Antioch Police Department. This investigation set to look for patterns of unconstitutional policing as allegations of bigoted text messages and other potentially discriminatory misconduct mount. The investigation, not criminal in nature, but could result in an order to correct systemic violations of law in this police department here in the Bay Area, Antioch. If any are found, this is separate from any ongoing administrative or criminal investigations at the local and federal levels. And now Attorney General Rob Bonta is encouraging anyone with information relevant to this investigation to come forward. It is, of course, back to work today for Senator Dianne Feinstein. After recovering in the Bay Area in California, she flew to Washington, D.C. yesterday as lawmakers called for her to return or resign early. Of course, she had stepped away temporarily in February to battle shingles. She already said she will officially leave her seat when her term ends next year. And we've got at least 2 California congresswomen and 1 congressman launching campaigns to replace her.
Yeah, I mean, it should be sayonara, sucker. I don't know why we're still doing this dance with Feinstein, but all right.
San Francisco's
sayonara, sucker.
And really, I mean, I've fallen out of love with Dianne Feinstein. And this is the problem. She's ruined her legacy. She's got a stink on her now, as far as I'm concerned, with you have sidelined a very important agenda in just the confirmation of judges. And
well, maybe they can move faster. Maybe now that she's back on the job, they'll have to rip through all these nominees and get them seated.
Yeah.
San Francisco's top prosecutor not being swayed in the case of this Walgreens shooting. She responded to the Board of Supervisors passing a resolution last night for her to release surveillance video. Brooke Jenkins said she is under no legal obligation to do that, and then she criticized the political pressure. She decided not to file charges against a security guard who killed a suspected shoplifter 2 weeks ago, claiming that he acted in self-defense. The supervisors say it's important to be transparent about what happened. One is now planning to try and ban security guards from using guns to protect property. People living in parts of downtown Martinez are on edge after a mercury spill. It turns out it was bigger than initially thought. County officials estimate almost 2 pounds of mercury spilled on Monday. First found in a trash can near the Amtrak station, may have spread inside, though, onto the platform and then into the street by a garbage truck. A health advisory issued yesterday tells residents to stay on the sidewalk, check their shoes. Officials also fear the mercury got into a storm drain. They aren't sure if that leads to a waterway or not.
Oh, my God.
Right?
Good
wow.
time.
The Oakland A's are now planning to build their future Las Vegas ballpark at the current site of the Tropicana. The A's have a deal in place with Bally's to build a $1.5 billion stadium on a part of the Tropicana Las Vegas site. As part of this deal, Bally's would have to tear down the Tropicana and build a new hotel casino right across from the stadium. And Wendy's fast food restaurant is testing out a new AI chatbot that can take drive-through orders. How's that going to sound? May I take your order?
Oh, I'm sure it won't sound like that, but it might
that?
on the inside be like that. Yeah.
The fast food chain partnered with Google to create Wendy's Fresh AI. It can take verbal orders from customers, but company officials tell the Wall Street Journal this tech won't replace existing workers. Instead, they say it'll give employees more time to focus on serving food and taking care of customer needs.
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll keep a human face there so the customers can actually yell at somebody and not just yell at some AI.
Curly fries or straight. Bo knows baseball, lastly, and Bo knows football, but apparently doesn't know how to get rid of the hiccups. Former NFL and Major League Baseball star Bo Jackson revealed to the McElroy and Kubelic in the morning show Wednesday he's had a case of the hiccups for nearly a year. A year! Jackson said he's tried many conventional and unconventional remedies, including sniffing the rear end of a porcupine. Jackson said he's having a procedure done this week to maybe get rid of these hiccups, but didn't provide any details.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I mean, I saw the story too. It's so strange that it makes you wonder. I mean, he's obviously, it's serious to the point that he's having to go on and endeavor some medical procedure. Yeah. But it's just a truly bizarre situation where you have the hiccups to the point that, you need to seek out, as I say, some medical procedure. It's crazy. I'd love to know what that medical procedure is. I'm sure there are only a handful of them. Maybe the commissioner's office can research that again, and we can have that for tomorrow.
I mean, it would have to be something to do with your diaphragm, right?
Right,
I mean, I would
exactly.
think. But you can be, I think, can you not die of exhaustion from something like that?
It keeps you up. That's a great point. Keeps you up at night. That's a great point.
The Mark Thompson Show is crowdfunded, and that means we have to rely on you. You can help keep us going by contributing via Patreon or PayPal. You can find those links at themarkthompsonshow.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
What could this be? Let's look. I'm so excited. It's The Mark Thompson Show.
Is CinemaScope.
Oh, I love that. I love that. The great Shadow Stevens in receipt of our Mark Thompson Show mug. All the different mugs. You can get a mug without anything on it, but all the different mugs also offer these various things that you're used to hearing on the show. So, please knock around the website, the merch site at your leisure. It's getmarkmerch.com. So, but I love seeing Shadow enjoy the mug so much. He is a great addition to the show. In San Francisco Bay, there may soon be a faster, clean way to get around, they say. Navier, is that how they call it? How they say it, that maritime company in Alameda? They're building boats with the plan to expand ride-sharing services across San Francisco Bay. It's a startup.
What?
They have a line of electric-powered hydrofoil vessels aimed to be an on-demand solution to passenger ferries and other public transportation. Quote, our goal is to really make the waterways a highway and really to build out the mobility on the water. As a pilot, as a captain, as a boater, this is a world-changing experience type of technology, said Sam Cedar, the Navier boat head of operations. This is truly a plane. This is a flying boat. We have 3 wings in the water. 2 of Navier's boats took flight during the recent international sailing competition in San Francisco, giving rides and demonstrations. They say in the coming weeks, the company will launch a pilot water taxi service between Bay Area cities. Why be sitting in your car, he says, for an hour in your morning commute and be grumpy when you can have a pleasant ride on the bay and go to your endpoint in a fraction of the time?
How much is it?
Well, it depends on where you're going to go, Kim.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. Albert is actually posting a video now and it is a cool looking thing.
Okay, that is cool.
Yeah. The cost, speed, and convenience have been deterrents to water taxis in the past, so it is likely that it will be pricey. There's no other boat in the world where you could have a little 20-pound dog going through 2-foot chop like
There's
his
never
little
been
dog,
anything like this.
Taco, who is the dog of the CEO, the dog partner of the CEO. We want to be affordable, he says. We want to see shuttles go from Berkeley to Redwood City, making the waterways accessible one boat at a time and hopefully a dozen next year and scale up from there. They want to be affordable, Kim. They want to be affordable.
Do we not already have ferries for this?
Well, we have ferries for large numbers of people, but you can't, the ferry doesn't take you exactly to where you want to go, is the point.
Sure.
So that's what's happening. It's kind of a personalized ferry.
So they didn't give you a price? Like, what if I wanted to go from Larkspur to, I don't know, Pier 39, which I can do on the ferry, but what if I wanted to do it on the boat?
Well, one of the advantages of the boat is we'll leave when you want to leave, probably, if it's like an Uber, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what the rate is going to be. Sounds to me like you have a lot of follow-up questions.
I do. I want to know how much this is going to cost me. Yeah.
Tucker Carlson has not signed a deal with Twitter. He has announced that he is going to do a show on Twitter, but there's no deal signed. He is accusing Rupert Murdoch of breaking promises, and he accuses Fox of fraud and breach of contract. In a 3-minute-long video, Tucker Carlson slammed the mainstream media and said anyone who tries to tell the truth will be fired. Sources have previously said that Tucker Carlson is, quote, preparing for war as he fights to be released from his $25 million a year non-compete clause. Elon Musk, of course, supposedly getting Carlson on board the Twitter train, and he'll do his show on Twitter. The weird story from San Francisco that I want to share with you is this one. And it's, I'll be honest, it's pervy.
Uh-oh.
San Francisco dry cleaner employee is charged after allegedly filming women in the dressing room. Guys, we're so disgusting in some ways.
What the hell is going on in the United States of America?
Ron gets it. An employee at a San Francisco dry cleaner charged with 6 counts of misdemeanor invasion of privacy after he allegedly recorded women in the shop's dressing room using a hidden camera.
How many dry cleaners have a dressing room?
Well, you do have, your typically dry cleaners is where you have things altered, as you know. I mean, it does happen. Yeah. Several women filed police reports saying the employee had asked them to undress while their clothes were being tailored. This is at Divisadero Heights Cleaners. That's on the 1100 block of Diviz. The employee allegedly placed a clock in the room and constantly adjusted it, which the women associate with the hidden camera. After a woman reported she reported to the police that she'd possibly been secretly recorded at the business, an investigation revealed that 5 other women had filed police reports detailing similar experiences at the same location. SFPD then got a search warrant, subsequently arrested a 31-year-old male suspect. I would like to thank all the women who came forward and shared their stories with investigators, said District Attorney Brooke Jenkins. If the employee is convicted of all 6 charges, how much time will he do, Kim?
I'm going to say 7 months.
That's what's happened to us, isn't it? Mm-hmm. We've kind of, no matter what, we just figured, I don't know what, suspended sentence, house arrest. Yeah, we just assume nobody does any time for anything anymore.
Sex crimes against women.
Right. No big deal. Right.
No
He'll appeal.
Yeah.
If the employee is convicted of all 6 charges, he could serve up to 3 years in county jail. Yeah, so that should make you happy.
There's a related story. I don't know if you saw this one, but it's recent, so I'll mention it. A cruise ship passenger found a hidden camera that had filmed over 150 people changing or using the bathroom. It happened aboard a Royal Caribbean cruise and somebody that was in the bathroom spotted this camera, and it had filmed all these people, from old people to somebody as young as 4 years old and everyone in between.
Wow.
And this man was arrested after apparently he was caught. So, yeah.
Man, I had seen it actually, but I had not seen the details. It's so pervy. It's so weird. It's just that, I don't know. Don't you find that I know we only have another minute or so, but I find that because society's become so either pervier or we know about perviness more than we used to, and I don't know which it is, I try to really avoid situations that can be misconstrued. I'll give you an example. I just did a bunch of photos over the weekend at an event I was emceeing, and I always wanted my both hands to be seen, okay? Because I didn't want there ever to be a moment where, because when I hug when I'm hugging a woman, I really not comfortable with it. You know what I mean? Just, I've gone way back. Now, I'm not a big hugger of women anyway, but I'm just saying, these situations are so fraught with issues that I find myself completely wanting to avoid it. And with kids, all the stuff where you go, oh my God, your child's like it. Now I always have distance between, and that's really painful because kids are adorable. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I just feel like it's so awful that this world of perviness has so infected society that we have to think that way. I think it's a sad comment, Yeah. As Jay Elvis says, great time to be alive. Albert, what do I need to do, Albert?
There's another last minute from Andreas.
Oh, Andreas, you're unbelievable. Wow. You really are. Wow. When Andreas is in the house, it really makes a difference. Thank you so much, Andreas, for a quick 20. Thank you. Again,
we have a couple others that we haven't gotten to. I think. I'm not sure if we got
Vilma.
To
Vilma. What up, Vilma? Thank you, Vilma. I appreciate, Vilma, not only your constant support, but your input in the chat. All of you, many of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You participate in the chat as well as participating financially in support. So thank you very, very much.
Not sure if we got to Wes either.
We did get to Wes, but you can mention him again. Thank you, Wes. Another one. Always in the chat as well. All of you today, I want to make a pronouncement. All of you who have contributed. Andreas is a big hugger. He does all the hugging I don't do, Andreas. All of you today. In fact, I'm going to say this of everyone who's participated today. You're all eligible to receive
the rod of equity and mercy.
Exactly. You're all eligible to receive it. Thank you. Well, sadly, our time together has wound down. We've done a lot today. We really got into the Trump case. We really got into the Santos case. I gave you the political ramifications of both. We talked to J. Elvis Weinstein. Those two documentaries are really great watches. I think you'll enjoy them. We met with John Rothmann. John and I pushed back with each other a couple of times. It was fun. And then we picked up all these loose ends with the pervs in San Francisco, and even the shuttle that will take you from the East Bay to the city and beyond, all around the Bay Area, in a private Uber-like shuttle on the Bay. Yes. Chris B., I'll go with Shadow Steven in the center square. Yes. Shadow is always in the center square. And, of course, we learned of Spencer Christian's award today, so something quite special. Thanks, everybody. Nikki Maduro's show is over on the Nikki Maduro channel.
For the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kamish, I hope the Dubs do it tonight. We'll see. Kim, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye.